Chapter 16. "How are the kids doing?" Paul asked, coming to sit down at the table almost an hour later. He shifted Morah on his lap and placed several colorful stylus crayons and a tablet in front of her. Almost immediately, she started to bring the red one up to her mouth. He calmly raised his hand and guided her small, chubby fingers away from her mouth and toward the tablet in front of her. "They are having fun playing in the paint house. We haven't heard a word out of them," Creon responded with a grin when Zoran and Mandra both leaned forward to pull the other two colorful stylus crayons away from Morah. "This babysitting is easier than I thought it would be," Traylon admitted with relief. "I'll have to remember to bring the girls down here when Kara goes out. It is much safer than being in our living quarters." "I never have trouble with Jabir," Mandra said, as he reached for one of the colorful pens. "I swear if you two touch her colors, I'll kick your asses tomorrow," Paul warned. "Paul, she might poke herself in the eye," Mandra muttered, even as he reluctantly pulled his hand away. "Or stick it in her mouth and choke," Zoran added. "If she does, I'll take care of her," Paul reassured both men. "I know how to raise your sister. Don't forget I raised Trisha on my own." "For which I will forever be in your debt," Keelan replied quietly. "I wouldn't have traded it for anything in this world," Paul murmured, bowing his head to press a kiss against Morah's soft, silky black hair. "Or the chance to have grandkids, either." He glanced toward the window of the paint house and watched the children for several long moments. He was just about to glance away when a slight flicker in the window caught his attention. Frowning, he studied the kids. Something was wrong. They were doing the exact same thing they had done just a few minutes ago. His eyes widened when he saw the flicker again, and a sense of déjà vu struck him hard when the scene repeated itself once more. It took a second for his brain to register what he was seeing. Images of the kids playing, but not the kids. A reluctant smile curved his lips. He wasn't worried about the children because he knew that the symbiotes wouldn't be far from their sides. But he knew one thing for certain. They had escaped. "So, the kids have been behaving?" he asked with amusement. "You haven't heard a peep out of them?" "Nope, not for the last hour," Zoran replied with a grin. Vox lifted his glass of beer. "As long as Rome has Balin to play with, he never gets into trouble," he boasted. "Is that right?" Paul said, motioning for his symbiote. "And have any of you actually gone into the paint house in the last hour to check on them?" he asked, sliding Morah into the golden stroller that Morian's and his symbiote had transformed into, and rising to his feet. "Goddess, no," Traylon replied with a shudder. "I'm not about to distract my two." "Paul!" Paul turned when he saw Kree and Kalo running toward them. All of the men, except for Haven, jumped and released a startled snarl when Viper suddenly appeared as well. Viper's expression was thunderous. "What happened?" Vox asked, rising to his feet. "Leo, he's gone," Viper said in a hoarse, wild voice, his gaze locked on his older brother. "He was lying in his crib. I went to get a drink, and when I returned, he was gone. Vox, my son!" Paul could see desperation in Viper's eyes. His gaze moved back to the paint house. In the window, the same images danced over and over again. He turned to Kalo and Kree as they drew to a stop. "Hope is gone," they said together. "She had just woken up and was playing with her toys. I went to the bathroom and Kree went to get her a bottle. When we returned, she was gone," Kalo stated in a harsh voice. "What about your symbiotes? Surely they would know where she has been taken." "They were gone as well," Kree admitted. "We have to find her, Zoran, and when we do, we'll kill whoever took her." "Before you start killing anyone, maybe you should find out where all the other kids have gone to as well," Paul suggested. "The others," Zoran started to say, when they all heard Morah's delighted giggle. "Daddy, bye-bye," Morah cooed. Paul turned on his heel to see a strange miniature replica of a forest fairy standing next to his daughter. His eyes widened, and his lips parted in surprise. For a moment, he thought he was looking at a miniature replica of Trisha when she had been a little girl with her bow and arrow. A soft curse burst from his lips when the beautiful blue eyes of Alice gazed back at him, before she touched the symbiote holding Morah, and they all disappeared. "What the?" Paul gasped. "Haven!" the men snarled. "I didn't teach her how to do that yet," Haven barked out in shock. "Do you think she took the other babies?" Cree asked, turning to look at the other men. "Well, wherever she went, the other kids are with her," Creon announced, when he and Mandra stepped out of the painthouse. "How?" Keelan started to say before he turned to glare at Traylon. Traylon backed up several inches and raised his hands. "I claim innocence to all knowledge of whatever Amber and Jade have done now. I just had the pleasure of creating them. Everything else comes from their mother," he swore. "I thought they were in there with all the others," he added, in a defensive tone, when they glared even harder at him. "It's a video," Paul stated, running his hand through his hair. "Where do you think they went?" "Lord Traylon, I think you might want to come to the control center," a voice announced over the sound system. "What is it?" Traylon snapped, touching the comlink on his wrist. "I think the dragonlings are in the castle, my lord. Something is going on. They are gathered in the throne room," Dulcie stated. "The castle," Zoran started to say before he grimaced and ran a hand down his face. "Dragon's balls," he muttered. "What is it?" Paul asked, turning to stare at the expression of resignation and exasperation on Zoran's face. "Zohar came to me last night all upset," he said, gazing at the men. "He had found one of the illustrations that Abby had drawn. I couldn't understand everything he was saying, but he was pretty upset about a queen and her minions. He said something about them stealing the babies, and someone named Jack, and—" His voice faded while he tried to remember the other name Zohar had mentioned. "Sally," Creon finished in a soft voice. "Jack and Sally. The queen has sent her minions from the land of Halloween to steal the babies." "What do you know about this?" Zoran asked. "It's the story Carmen has been telling the girls at night," Creon replied, with a shake of his head. "They've been begging her to tell the story of Jack and Sally over and over." "Now I understand what Zohar was asking me," Zoran said, releasing a long sigh. "What was that?" Paul asked. Zoran gave the group of men a rueful smile. "He asked if it was a leader's responsibility to protect the others," he murmured. "When I told him yes, he said that he would do what he could to protect the babies." Paul chuckled and shook his head. "Well, all I can say is we better get those kids back before our mates return, or we're going to be the ones that need protecting," he stated, rounding the table and heading toward the castle. "Bloody cats, Tina is never going to trust me alone with Leo again," Viper muttered under his breath, following the group. "Tina? At least all she has is claws. Have you ever seen a furious female dragon? Melina will roast us for losing hope," Kayla retorted.